Is Sergeant Al's Traffic Ticket Blog. Hello and welcome to my show. I'm Al Castro. This is the first of what I hope will become many podcasts that focus on traffic, roads, infrastructure, cars, buses, trains, planes, and automobiles. This program is about you and how your life is about to radically change in the advent of electric cars and autonomous driverless robot vehicles. Most of us don't realize it, but we are at the dawn of a new age as our cars are beginning to learn how to drive and park themselves, and eventually how to even recharge themselves for the next cycle of use. As this happens, our lives are going to change, and we need people to recognize this to guide us through these challenging times ahead for the good and bad things that these technologies can bring. This was a long time coming, the age of electric and robot cars, and the podcast to my blog. I'm Al Castro. I'm a retired police officer who's presently a security consultant and broadcaster who writes about cars, transportation, green technology, and police culture to talk about it all here at alcastro.com. Do you have a parking ticket or traffic ticket and don't know what to do? Have an issue with DMV and need to figure it out? Not sure whether you should buy or lease your next plug-in hybrid? Why do the cops park their cars on the side of the road the way they do? You have any questions like these? Tell me at contact@alcastro.com. Please join me for conversation, dialogue, and my tweets at my Facebook post, facebook.com, Sergeant Al's Traffic Ticket Blog, or follow me on Twitter at Sergeant Al Castro. You know, over the years, since I've retired, I've been asked all different kinds of interesting questions. And one of the more popular ones is, can you talk a police officer out of writing a ticket? And that's a very complex question, believe it or not, because it has a clear-cut answer, but, you know, it depends on, of course, the circumstances. One of the things that question gives supposition to, which I think is dangerous, actually. And this is where you start to see the core of what it is my blog has been about the past 6 years. This is not about legal advice, okay? Most likely, in most of the scenarios that people ask me, I tell them, look, your best option is to talk to a lawyer. I even cover myself sometimes. I am not a lawyer, and I am not playing lawyer when answering these questions. In actuality, this is about determining when you should be talking to a lawyer and when you probably really do need to talk to a lawyer. And one of the things that I can tell you without a doubt is when you get stopped by the police, you should not be talking at all. Nobody inside the car should be talking. The only one that should be talking is the driver, and everyone else, like a child, should be seen and not heard. That's the way that works. And unless you are a witness or a complainant, your best interaction that you can have with the police is to say as little as possible, because you don't know what kind of outcome you may be under, to not realize it initially, especially if you already have points on your driver's license. By talking your way out of a traffic ticket, most likely you're talking your way into one. And if you hire a lawyer, you're going to make it more difficult for yourself because you're admitting guilt. All right, so that supposition starts with that should you even be talking to the police officer? There's also another component to this, is that when you get stopped by the police, you are technically under arrest right there at the side of the road. So the less you say, the better off you are. So let me give you six circumstances, okay, that a police officer would let you go, but didn't have the patience or the time, probably, quite frankly, to tell you why. And it's usually under these 6 circumstances, whether the motorist realizes it or not, that gave way to actually letting the motorist go with a warning or some kind of written or verbal warning. All right, so you should never fool yourself into thinking that you talked your way out of a ticket. And one of the reasons why, the most important reason why actually, is because the officer has to take detailed notes of the car stop. He needs to take notes of the traffic device that was used for the enforcement and make sure that that was working correctly. The officer uses tools of enforcement, particularly if this is about a speeding violation. He needs to give testimony about the certifications of the instrument and his qualifications. And most importantly, the officer needs to take notes of the conversation that he had with the motorist. So it's for that reason alone that a police officer is not going to entertain your stupid ass silly nonsense and excuses that he's heard 1,000 times in his sleep to hear it during the waking hours. So most likely it is under these 6 circumstances that an officer lets you go. So here they are. Here are 6 reasons why you were just let go from a traffic infraction on a car stop that the officer just didn't have the time or the patience to explain it to you. Number 1, you are or were a law enforcement officer, in most circumstances some kind of first responder, and under most circumstances sometimes the military. For these people that are not law enforcement, be extra nice and be extra courteous. Professional courtesy is not guaranteed to you, but under most circumstances you will get it. And not all police officers get professional courtesy everywhere that they go, okay? So sometimes that's an exception and not the rule, all right? But yeah, that's most likely a good reason why you were let go. Number 2, you are family or a really close civilian friend of a law enforcement officer, and you showed proof. Now with this one, you have to be careful, all right? Try to pull over right away when you see the officer. Be nice, cut all the interior lights on, try to make his job a little easier, and tread lightly in conversation. Okay, because with the way that dynamic works in some places is that the break that he's giving you is on your law enforcement family member or buddy that you know, that he gave you documentation to prove that he knows you. The next one might be on you if he catches you anytime soon. All right, so be aware of that. Number 3 is the most likely scenario in which a police officer will let you go, and 9 times out of 10 you may not realize it because he doesn't even have the time to explain. And number 3 is about there's a more pressing matter the officer needs to go to, like a 911 in progress call. Someone's being robbed, burgled, raped, shot, stabbed, arguing to a fistfight escalation or assaulted, or the dispatcher has a call that gives reason to say so. The officer's got to go now. And if he has the time, he may do a warrant check, a license check, make sure that you're not on the FBI's most wanted list and you're not responsible for killing law enforcement officer. But that's most likely the reason he had to go and you were in the way. Okay, so he let you off with a warning. And that's usually under the common circumstances as to how people are let go. Number 4 is you have a reasonable goddamn excuse, and it's probably obvious when the officer pulls up to your door, pulling you over to the car stop. And I have seen this scenario I'm about to give you less than a handful of times, but they're indelible memories that are planted in my mind. These are about laborers, women being in labor, and the labor has gone so terribly wrong. There's not only blood in the car, there's blood on the seat, on the carpeting, on the dashboard, the seat. I mean, sometimes even the headliner. I mean, it's blood all over the place. She's pale and she's about to go into shock, and she's about to have that baby, whether it's going to be okay or not. And you don't even just say anything. You just walk up to the car and say, oh, okay, follow me. And you take them to the hospital and hope that everything turns out all right. So yeah, that's usually there's no talking your way out of that. It's the obvious and it's the right thing to do. But also be careful with that, okay? Taking it upon yourself to be driving 90 miles an hour in your own car. You don't have the training, and your car is not equipped to be that way. And this is a situation I can explain with the 2 exceptions to these 6 rules about getting mouthy with police officers. If you're not careful, you get mouthy with him on that journey to the emergency room. There will come a time when there is a moment that he might write you for that, okay? Driving 90 miles an hour is dangerous, but usually under most circumstances, it's explainable, and it's usually, a no-brainer that, okay, I can see why you're going that fast, okay? Number 5 is an interesting one, and we come across this scenario probably much more often, ironically, than number 4 that I just gave you. And this is, the officer really wasn't in the mood to write, and or he's looking for someone or something else. These were the times when I stopped you for the possibility of DWI. I stopped you either on mobile DWI task force patrol or at a checkpoint. It could have been a fugitive search in a roadblock, or a safety violations check at the end of the month that the troop or police station house is falling behind in their summons activity and they need to make it up. So they'll do a safety checkpoint off the exit of a parkway or a highway and start pulling people over for expired inspection certificates and registration and all that other paperwork that you're supposed to have in your car, or seatbelt or cell phone violations. So yeah, it's either it wasn't in the mood to write, or he's looking for something or someone else. This is also the scenario where he searches your car. If a police officer is searching your car, it's not about getting a ticket anymore. That might be a consequence of that. It's more about looking to place you under arrest, okay? So yeah, that's number 5. Number 6 is another interesting one. It doesn't happen as often as it once did, like it did back in the day when I was a police officer. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why is because of these horrible assassinations and how they've come about in recent years with some of these police officers, that a lot of agencies now are doubling up their officers in radio cars and on patrol, so that you have a partner. So this is less so. This is about the proverbial lone state trooper or FBI agent, state trooper or highway patrolman that is out on the road alone, solo, and it's late at night, and or in the evening hours, and they're lonely and they're looking for companionship, just as somebody to talk to. It does not have to be sexual, but I'm sure sometimes it's about that too. This is when he or she will stop you, they'll vet you, they'll do a license check, they'll do a warrant check, make sure that they decrease the possibility of you killing them. And then once he feels or she feels that you're okay, he or she will engage you in conversation. And you'll talk about sports or your fancy car, whatever it is, the reason why it is that he stopped you. And yeah, that happens, police officers are people too. They recruit us from the human race. We're humans just like you. We are the police, and we are you. So yeah, that's rare nowadays to have solo patrol, particularly in the late evening hours or the wee hours of the morning. But yeah, those are the 6 rules. Now, these are the 2 exceptions that you need to be aware of. One of them is about getting mouthy with police officers, okay? Your mouth probably is the number 1 reason, past your actions behind the wheel, of what gets you into trouble with the law, which is why I say less is more. But regardless of what circumstances I've just given you in the 6 reasons, even law enforcement officers, if you say the wrong thing, you are definitely not, you're guaranteed, it's beyond guarantee, you're cauterizing the process of getting a ticket if you say something that you shouldn't have, okay? And that's getting mouthy with them. The second exception is doctors. I need to have a conversation with you doctors. Now, nurses, you're okay. You are highly regarded in the law enforcement community, and just about in most circumstances, you probably will get a break. There's no reason for you to be talking your way out of a ticket. But I have had situations stopping doctors, and I give one example. At least he tried to have a sense of humor about it. It was a doctor that was driving a Porsche convertible. He had a golf bag in that back seat thingy that's behind the seats, the front seats. You know, you could put maybe a baby infant on it, and a golf bag, ironically. And at least he tried to have a sense of humor when I stopped him for speeding. He said, "You wouldn't believe me if I was on my way to the emergency room." And, you know, I told the doctor, no, I wouldn't. And I gave him a ticket anyway. You are better off telling me that you are, if it's about anything about talking your way out of something, you're better off telling me that you're one of these indispensable, valuable surgeons that gets called to the emergency room to save a police officer's life. And I have had that happen over the course of my career. I'll stop a medical doctor and he'll say something along the lines of, I was the doctor that saved Detective McDonald's life from his spinal cord injury. We did this sophisticated procedure, and, you know, he'll go into the highlights of it. And he's lining all his ducks up in a barrel to set up to be getting a break. You know, he's giving names, locations, the right hospitals, the right circumstances, the right police force member. I mean, the whole 9 yards of that. Yeah, this guy, yeah, he's probably the one. And, you know, you're left in the circumstances where most likely you're going to give that doctor a break under those circumstances. So, yeah, you're probably doing something better than that than just telling me you're on your way to the emergency room, because that's been so played out. It just doesn't work anymore, okay? So, yeah, that's basically it. Those are the 6 reasons and the 2 exceptions to talking your way out of a traffic ticket. And the circumstances are such that most likely the officer decided to give you a break, but it most likely was for a reason that you probably weren't even aware of, or circumstances that weren't brought to your attention. And you know what? If you walk away from the situation, it should be a learning experience. And I hope that it is for many of you that get stopped and walk away from a situation where you don't get a ticket from the police. So that's my blog. That's episode 1 of my podcast. It will be available on audio and video. It is also continued on its written format. The location is alcastro.com/blog. Please also don't forget to follow me on my Facebook page. That's Sergeant Al's Traffic Ticket Blog. That's facebook.com/Sergeant Al's Traffic Ticket Blog. And also follow me on Twitter at Sergeant Al Castro. Until next time, I'll see you then. Thanks for listening or watching. Take care.